When it comes to supercar manufacturing, the French have Bugatti. The Italians boast Lamborghini and Ferrari. But right here in Nigeria, we proudly have Benny. Your experience in building cars, where did the bulk of the knowledge come from?
Kind of self-taught. I learned most of the things I learned online. There are a lot of information I was always Googling, printing diagrams, pictures, watching YouTube, trying to understand the operation patterns of all these machines.
This is Nigeria, and right behind me is a brand that proves that Africans are capable of doing great things. Why supercars? Why not just say, okay, I'm stopping at normal everyday automobile, but why supercars?
I understood that the sports cars, the luxury cars, the supercars, Formula Ones were like the most difficult form of automotives. Those were the aspects where you had tight conditions to work with. So your ability to understand all those ones and work with them rightly, you would easily produce the day-to-day cars.
His name is Jerry Mallo, and without an engineering degree, he has built Nigeria's first sports car.
Most times, Africans import luxury cars that do not fit our topography. So it takes an African to solve Africans' problem. And that is what Benny is doing.
The basic is to see that we make affordable and available vehicles designed for the African environment.
When you were growing up, what did you see yourself being?
I think since I was 5, I always saw myself walking around cars.
Really?
Yes, being a team lead in a car manufacturing company. I can't really put memories together, but I remember growing up in the village, we use offcuts from roofing sheets to make toy cars. We use sticks and other things, and I always wanted mine to be the finest, to be the best amongst my peer group. It wasn't all about just making a toy car, it was being the best amongst the rest. We used slippers to cut the tires, and while my friends would be using knife, razor blade to cut the tire, and it doesn't come out to perfection. I will steal my father's torch. Those old type of torches and the tiger head. I would
yes, that stainless one.
Yeah.
Okay.
I will remove the head, put it on fire. When it's red hot, I will press it on my new slippers. So I get those tires to perfection. It has some kind of lines, the white, blue, green. Yes, I wanted those lines to come out clean. And I just always wanted my cars to be the finest. Even if I was taking my bath and I had the sound of any car passing, I would want to run out just to see the car. So I knew that there was much interest about vehicles since that young age, and I kept growing and developing the interest more around it. I was fortunate to go to a primary school where the science teacher noticed my interest and gave me more attention around it. He was buying toy cars for me to dismantle. He was getting me more videos and content that would develop my growth towards that. I think in primary 3, I was making toy cars with wire remote controls already. In GS3, I built the first drivable car that I was able to sit down and drive on. So that's where it started from.
Your experience in building cars, where did the bulk of the knowledge come from? Would you say it was through the 4 walls of education? Or would you acquire most of those knowledge on your own?
I'm kind of self-taught. I learned most of the things I learned online. There are a lot of information I was always Googling, printing diagrams, pictures, watching YouTube, trying to understand the operation patterns of all these machines.
You said you were staying in the village. At that time, how were you getting access to internet, to research and all of that? What were you doing?
So I had to travel an hour, 30 minutes from the village to the city, where I bought time.
That is internet time in cyber cafes, for those who don't know.
In cyber cafe. So I traveled to the cities. First, I farmed to save money. When I farm, I save money. I then travel to the city. I pay for time in cyber cafes. I go online on Google, YouTube, and other things to have internet access.
Wow.
And travel back to my village at evenings or night.
How often were you doing that in a week?
Yeah, it's like every weekend. That was where I was going to the point most of the cyber cafes knew me. I was just a regular customer there.
Wow.
So if I don't go there, it means I'm out of funds. I'm out of transport. So from the idea was, how do a car operate? From inserting the key, twisting it. What happens in that Kickstarter? What do the key touch? What electricity flows to the Kickstarter, to the crankshaft, to all that? So I just needed to understand all those basics. So I was always watching animations on YouTube as a kid. And when I watch a lot of them, I would want to come and see them physically. So I was going to roadside mechanics. I was watching them dismantle cars. I was seeing the parts, and I was making reference to them, to what I had watched online. So it started from there to the point where I said, I need to make one. I don't want to keep assuming that I understand and I can do it. I need to make one. So I tried to do something very little with a grinding machine engine. So I just welded the chassis, the body parts together, mounted the grinding machine, and attached it with a motorcycle gearbox.
Wow.
With wheelbarrow tires and the steering connection. And I saw that, yes, it was working. So that gave me a better motivation to, okay, let me do something better. I need to try and see what I could do better, and so on. I kept growing.
But you know what I'm curious about is, many people, you know, if they want to venture into automobile, manufacturing, they will start with normal automobile that people use on a day-to-day basis. But for you, you didn't go with the simple one, which is the everyday automobile. You went with supercars. Why supercars? Why not just say, okay, I'm stopping at normal everyday automobile, but why supercars?
So there's a lot of plans to build day-to-day cars.
Okay.
There's a lot of plans to build buses, tricycles, SUVs, and a couple of others. But during my studies, I understood that the sports cars, the luxury cars, the supercars, Formula Ones were like the most difficult form of automotives. Those were the aspects where you had tight conditions to work with. So your ability to understand all those ones and work with them rightly, you would easily produce the day-to-day cars. So that's where I chunked a lot of our energy towards. Now, another factor was, you have a lot of university graduates within Nigeria. If the target is to have manufacturing companies in large scales here in Nigeria, who are going to be the designers, who will be the engineers, and who, and so on in the company. So I also saw it as a teaching training ground for other young people who are university graduates and want to understand the basics of car manufacturing. So as we're doing our team, doing the prototyping and research development, we're also taking students on intern and teaching them ABC so they could learn D, E, F on their own. And supercars, sports cars are some of the difficult aspect of automobile. So we believe that as they are able to understand that, when we get to the stage where we are producing day-to-day cars, it becomes an easy task for them.
What is the biggest challenge you've had, in building these vehicles?
Access to finance has been the first, the major, and maybe the next, access to information, to knowledge, to the know-how on how to achieve it. There are limited libraries, limited study facilities, limited research facilities that will enable you try something like this. Unfortunately, we're in an environment where things like this are not really prioritized. So a lot of times you have to go through the route of trial and error to get it right. There are not sure places that you can go to and you get the right information needed there. So I think those are the two major challenges. The first being finance, which is the same or usual across all platforms. There are limited opportunities, financial opportunities around the environment. There are no financial institutions that really support. There are a few, but having access to them is quite difficult. As a young chap you'll be asked to provide collateral twice, 3 times the amount you are requesting. For manufacturing, is no bread production. It's not something you need 5 million, 10 million for. So for huge amounts at our age, what collateral do we have to give? So it becomes difficult. And sometimes even when it's accessible, you need loud voices to press buttons for you before you have access to them. So it becomes a challenge. When you go to the commercial banks, their interest rates are high with little or no moratorium period. So if you are giving the loan this month, from next month, you're already servicing, you're already paying the loan. You are using it for an automotive manufacturing research, which sometimes in 5 years, you're not even done. But in a month's time, you're already paying the capital and the interest. Benny Automobile is still on research and development stage, where we are focused on taking in investors. We've been pushing on making investments and getting the patient funding that will enable us get our workshops to standards, to further produce standard vehicles.
So are you telling me that right now that Benny Automobile is not doing mass production?
No, not at all.
So that means all the razzmatazz we see online about Benny Automobile, what you are saying is you are still a brand seeking investors.
That's right.
With, to invest in African talents that has built this amazing product.
That's right.
So what can you, tell us about this particular phase you guys are in. What would you want from people, from investors at this point?
So basically, like earlier mentioned, patient funding. So this is us trying to tell Africans that an indigenous brand needs to be developed, needs to be made. And if there are fundings made available in no time, in few years from now, it's going to be blown, it's going to be grown to a point where it can service the need of the African environment. It's just like giving birth to a baby. At the first stage, you need to do a lot of cleaning of the baby, and in few years, it grows up and it becomes an adult. So this is just us telling investors that we are the right place, we are the next gold you need to invest your finances.
What is the vision for Benny Automobile?
That's wide. So what the basic is to see that we make affordable and available vehicles designed for the African environment. It hurts a lot when we see car crashes take the lives of so many people in them. So if you travel around, you see when there's a bus crash, it squeezes the commuters in it, and the chances of survival is very little. So we want to see where Benny grows to a point where we make vehicles that chances of survival is as high as 90%, 95%.
Designed by Africans for the African environment.
Yeah, most of the vehicles we use were designed to protect humans at maybe 90 kilometers per hour at low speeds. But in Africa, we barely have regards for speed. So we find people driving at 120, 150, and if they crash at those speeds, those vehicles were not designed to handle those crashes. So we want to see where we get to the point where our vehicles can safeguard the lives of people at those high speeds. That's one of the reasons why we're careful about choosing the material we use in building our vehicles. Started with fiberglass. Fiberglass will be able to absorb those shocks at high speed and then shatter when the shocks becomes too much. Then with the airbags in them, it will further cushion the effect on the human bodies, rather than squeezing them inside as metal sheets would. So that's one of the aspects we plan at seeing. It doesn't make sense when we see our raw materials being exported and then the finished goods imported to us. We want to see where these values can be converted to end products.
Would you, for a young Nigerian who wants to pursue this path, what would be your advice to them?
I would tell them start. One of the biggest challenges we as young Africans have is we want to have it all right before we start. It's one of the challenges that doesn't let us start at all. You can have, I've had young people approach me and say they want to do this, they want to do that, they don't have funding, and I'll see them using an iPhone 14, iPhone 15. But they're saying they don't have a capital, and all they needed was like slash the price of that phone. Some of them will say they don't have knowledge on how to do it, while they have a smartphone. It's like the smartphone is just used for fun. They don't see it as an avenue to learn. So I will advise them to just start with what they have to get what they need. Start by learning online. Start with a little finance you have to start doing what you want to do. I remember so many sacrifices I did. So you can't go through these trails, through these paths without making sacrifices. There are times where I had monies to buy clothes. I will sacrifice and use it to do all those stuff. There are times where I sold my phones because I needed finance to achieve it. So just start where you can start, make sacrifices, be willing to try over and over until you get it right.
Guys, this is to say that African entrepreneurs need African investors.
That's
okay,
right.
We need to invest in ourselves, in our human resource, in our talent. I mean, if you have Bugatti, by the French, and you have other luxurious supercars by other, European countries, why can't we build our own here in Africa? What Benny Automobile is doing shows that it is possible. And this is just funding from, internal funding, and this is how far they've come. Right now, we need investment from you guys. Let's take Benny Automobile to where it's supposed to be. All right, guys, so that's it for us on this one today. I want you guys to please let us know what your thoughts are in the comments below. If you need to reach out to Benny Automobile, remember for investments, which the description below, you will see details there you can reach out to. Okay, stay safe until next time. Peace out.